So unless you want another 365 days of disappointment, stop making these bad art goals. Which is why as you watch me draw this today, I want to warn you about the worst art goals that artists make and fail at every single year so that you don't do that and so that you can actually restructure them, because this will be the difference between a year of disappointment or growth. Now, at the core of everything that we need to talk about and why so many artists never even come close to achieving their goals, or they fall just a little bit short of it and they're just not sure why. I want to just let you know in all honesty, I have done every single thing that I'm about to warn you about throughout this video today. I have made every single poor excuse for why they didn't work and I never understood it. And I'm going to go on a limb and say you're doing it too, my friend. And at the crux of the issue, here's what it is that all too often when we're creating goals, you're probably going to create some type of goal or framework for it that you think is really great and you're going to sound excited for it. But the problem is that it's just too much of a nebulous goal. And we're gonna talk about every single one of those that I hear all the time, and I also wanna guide you through how to fix it. And look, everything that we're about to talk about today, it comes from how I've worked with thousands of artists just like you. I've helped them reframe, restructure them, and I wanna do that for you too, because if you go through this, I bet you're gonna find something that relates to something that you've said or something that you're thinking about doing so that you can stop and actually succeed at what you wanna do. And so a critical understanding that I want you to come to is that the major issue and why you create such nebulous, ambiguous goals is because your goals have two requirements for them. First and foremost, we need to create a measurable outcome. If you're creating a goal like just do this or just do that, but you're not actually creating some type of a product at the end of it, or you're not creating some type of a measurable artifact for it, then it is not something that can be achieved because it is not a goal, it's a wish. And then also, you have to create some type of an action step plan in order to get to there, because if it's not focused on your direct efforts, if it's focused on something outside of you, then it's not something that you can achieve, because that is a dream, not a goal. And the difference between a dream and a goal is the action and who it's focused on. Like, for example, I can dream about wanting to fly, but I'm not gonna grow wings anytime soon, am I? And so to set you up better this year, watch out for these goals and let's talk about how we can reshape them. Now, as an artist, you definitely want to get better at a lot of stuff, right? And I see this all the time, every single year. Y'all are going to say something to the effect of like, I want to get better. This is going to be my year. I'm going to improve. I'm going to get so much better. And then you're going to loop it into this gem and you're going to be like, I'm going to improve my fundamentals. Is this you? Are you thinking about doing that this year? Or how about this? Have you ever been told that you need to work on your fundamentals? Well, I kind of have a problem with that, because I want to let you know why being told that you need to work on your fundamentals is honestly the worst, most bewildering and confusing suggestion that anybody ever gives you, and why you telling yourself that isn't going to work out and it's not a very good goal. Because in being told that you need to work on your fundamentals, first off, it's kind of like somebody is essentially saying to you, well, you suck, get better. And I've never quite understood why people say that, because the issue here is that it's far too broad and far too global. And the fundamentals, it's not like it's one thing, it is an entire mass of things. And so to do this more effectively, pick a skill or skills that you actually want to do and break it down and assess it over time. So you might be thinking something to the effect of like, well, look, I want to get way better at value. I want to get way better at lighting. I want to get way better at perspective. But we're also going to talk about in a minute why even that goal in and of itself is an issue. But first off, if you're thinking about getting better at your fundamentals, you have to be more specific than that. And you also want to give yourself some type of a time frame that you're going to work on it. Like how long, again, there's like 10 plus fundamentals at least that you can work on. So which ones do you want to work on? Do you want to work on perspective for this long? Do you want to work on rendering for this long? Do you want to work on values for this long? Do you want to work on composition for a few months? What is it? Give yourself a hard target to hit. And how many pieces do you want to do too? What are you going to do in order to do that? Are you going to do a whole bunch of sketches? Are you going to do a whole bunch of finished projects? Do you want to integrate that and have that be the focus of your projects for this year? What are you going to do in order to get better at fundamentals? Because fundamentals are not just a genie that you go searching for and then you wish for it and you find it and you get it. You have to be specific and you have to search it out, my friend, and you have to target it, or else you're not going to hit any targets. See how that works? But also too, even if you do define it down, then we run into this issue. So at this point, you might be thinking exactly what you do need to target. Maybe it's anatomy, maybe it's perspective, maybe it's landscapes. And so now you're going to say to yourself, okay, Sean, I got you. So I'm going to say this year that my goal is I want to get better at insert here, fill in the blank, right? And you're gonna say again something to the effect of like lighting or dynamic posing, and that's also a terrible art goal, believe it or not. And it's why you haven't improved on it in the last 5 years either, more than likely. So let's take this for example. Let's say that you want to get better at perspective. Okay, cool, but how do you do that? So according to that, if you want to get better at perspective and you've never done perspective before and you absolutely suck at it, if you do one more perspective drawing than you did last year, then you've succeeded at your goal. But I'm gonna bet that that's not enough for you, is it? Because it isn't. So here's what you wanna do. Carefully delineate how many of what type of perspectives do you want to do? Like for example, do you want to take the first 3 months of the year and say, I want to work on 1 point perspective. I'm going to do so many sketches. I'm going to do a couple semi-rendered ones, and then I'm going to come up with 2 really awesome 1 point perspectives. And then I can go through the same thing with 2 point perspective and say, okay, now I'm going to take the next 3 months again. I'm going to create so many sketches, a few really hard practices where I'm really intentional, and then I'm going to create 2 or 3 really awesome on point 2 point perspectives. And you do the same thing for 3 point perspective. That's an awesome goal because again, we have a measurable outcome and we have action-based steps to get there. Another gem I hear all the time is, I want to get better at anatomy. So by that logic, if you've never drawn a male character before and you draw 1 more than you did last year, success. But that's not good enough, okay? So again, how many artworks do you want to do? What is your path? What is your design in order to get there? And then 2, you want to get better at anatomy? Okay, cool. What does that mean? Do you want to get better at drawing one type of anatomy? Do you want to get better at drawing male and female anatomy? Does that mean that you want to get better at drawing more diverse body types? What does that mean? Define it, or you're going to completely alienate it. Another good one I hear is that people say, I want to get better at backgrounds. Okay. What type of backgrounds? Do you want to do interiors? Do you want to do exteriors? Do you want to do landscapes? Do you want to do cityscapes? What is it? Do you want to do them in color? Do you want to do them black and white? How many practices do you need to do? How many trials do you need to do where you're really going to put like maybe 50% effort? Take those sketches from that unfinished product, and we'll talk about why sketches tend to transform themselves into some bad goals later on today too. And then how many times are you going to go ahead and actually produce a finished product from that? If you're really interested in growth, friend, you have to be specific with it. If you're gonna be working on these, what's the timeline on it? You're gonna give yourself 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, the whole year? What's it gonna be? And the big issue comes from the fact that you will never grow in ambiguity, because instead you'll just be scratching your head next year trying to figure out why you didn't make any progress this year either. See how that works? And on that note, would you like to see a guide on how to actually create your own self-study program? Because I gotta be honest, around this time of the year, I'm so sick and tired of seeing people that are really bad at designing this or suggesting it for you or giving you terrible advice for it. So if that's something you'd be interested in, let me know about it down below. But is this you too? Have you ever made these goals before? Because I have. Now, when you transform your art in your life, I bet you are gonna say around this time that you need to invest into one major practice. You've seen it online everywhere, and it's something that you probably thought about or tried before in the past, but it probably didn't work out back then either. And I'm gonna guess that you're gonna think about getting a sketchbook. Is this you, or are you thinking like, man, I can't wait to get a sketchbook. I'm gonna fill that sketchbook. I'm gonna go ahead and blast through that. I'm gonna annihilate all 100, 200, 300 pages, whatever it is. But let me talk to you about why most people buy a sketchbook every year and they never even come close to finishing it. Now, just real talk, honestly, I have not done sketches in sketchbooks for about 4 years right now because I have another process, I'll talk to you about that later today, that can work out just fine in substitute of this, and it actually might bring you the growth that you're looking for a little bit better. The issue is that most people don't have any type of direction as far as what they're going to do in that sketchbook. They're gonna be like, I'm gonna buy a sketchbook. Fill it with what? It's almost like if you buy a house, but you have no money to actually fill it with anything, and then 10 years later, you're still sleeping on the floor. It doesn't make sense. So I wanna help you restructure this and restructure your sketching, okay? And I wanna give you this example because it's something that I've done with my students, it's something that I've also done with myself. And I used to buy that sketchbook, I'd feel really motivated, and then I would sit down and be like, oh, what do I draw? So is this you? So one of the things that I did when I bought a sketchbook in the past is what I would do is I would open up the back cover of it, and then I would just write down a whole bunch of different prompts. And then in that list, I would compile things that I liked and things that were completely foreign to me. I've even done entire sketchbooks just of things that I never ever draw, like food or destroyed landscapes or different creatures or different like fish. If you want to keep it structured in your sketchbook, I'd recommend that you keep it about 60% comfortable, 40% uncomfortable so that you're not hating your life all the time. But if you are somebody that's a bit more serious, I'm gonna recommend that you definitely go for the more uncomfortable end of that, but then also sprinkle in some of the stuff that you do like, just to help keep that motivation up high, right? Another thing that you wanna think about is, what is the purpose of your sketchbook this year? Just you filling a sketchbook will not make you a better artist, okay? It just won't. It will improve some elements of your art, but it's not globally going to impact you that much. In order to help you with that, here are some productive mindsets that you could and should employ. First and foremost, assist it with your learning directive. So kind of borrowing from some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, and we have talked about. If you want to get better at anatomy, good. Insert that into there. If you want to get better at landscapes, insert that into there so that it actually will relate to what you're trying to do. This can also be for the purposes of warming up. I definitely know that there's a lot of artists that can't just sit down and crap out magic, and that's okay. So that could be, again, your structured time to sit down and be like, I'm gonna just sketch, doodle, just brain flow and everything and anything. And I'm gonna do that for the next like 15, 20 minutes, and then I'm gonna actually start my finished polished artwork project that I actually care about. Another thing on that note is just free flow thought. So use your sketchbook in order to channel that. And this could be something that, you're not using any references for, and then you're gonna go ahead and transfer that to a finished state. But most importantly, y'all, we wanna understand this. My advice for you is to keep this intentional and relevant to what your actual hard art goals are, because just to be honest with you, you're not gonna feel impressed with yourself by creating an entire mountain of one sketchbook or multiple sketchbooks of just unfinished doodles. You're not gonna feel that impressed with it. It's gonna be, what do you do and how does that assist what you do wanna do? You see that? And I have a lot of thoughts, obviously, on how to produce a sketchbook. And if you think that would be a good video topic that you'd like me to explore a little bit deeper and to show you some more practical tips on, let me know about it down below, because I'm happy to make that for you. So if you're no stranger to my channel, you'll definitely know that I talk a lot about art business. And because of the fact that I work with a lot of freelancers, one of the most common things I hear all the time, and this can be expanded as we'll talk about in this segment, but you might be saying to yourself something effective like, I want to get my first client, or I want to get X amount of clients, right? Is this you, or are you thinking about this is going to be your year, this is going to be your time, you're going to go ahead and dedicate yourself to that? Well, I hate to burst your bubble here, but I need to let you know that's a really terrible art goal. And here's why. It's because you just climbing to the top of a mountain and just exclaiming that you want to get more clients is not going to produce that result. You can't just yell it, declare it, wish for it. Will that ever bring about the desired result that you want, friend? And I just hate that there's so much bad advice. Like if you look throughout YouTube, I'm just gonna be honest, there's so much bad, poor, recirculated, regurgitated advice on how to do this. And here's the proper way that I would go about doing this. This is the way that I did it and how I built my business. That goal is completely outside of your control, okay? You cannot mind control people into paying you money. What you can control, though, are your actions in order to get those people. What are you doing in order to target those people? What are you doing in order to soup up your portfolio? What are you doing in order to narrow down your niche? What are you doing in order to actually put yourself in front of more people in order to get that? And no, I'm not talking about growing an audience. That's the worst, dumbest idea that you could ever do. Lurkers don't care and they don't pay either, okay? I'm talking about very specific, very actionable things. So things that you want to think about is like, what's in your portfolio? How can you make that stronger? What niche are you really focused on? Or are you somebody that's still drawing schoolgirls and scratching your head why nobody's paying you for it? Because it's generic and nobody really wants generic, because there's 100,000 other artists or even AI that could just do that for them instead of you, and you do a much better job at it, I bet, right? But that's why they're not coming to you for it. So this year, double down on your actual focused efforts to get those clients and target what actually matters to them, not trying to get followers for them, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And I gotta be honest with you, y'all, my channel will definitely get you there and give you the most practical, actionable advice that you will ever hear on this or any other platform. And if you're down for that and you want more of that, definitely hit that like and subscribe. And if this video is helping you, please share it with somebody that you know so that I can help them too, because I want us all to be killing it this year and beyond. And now we gotta talk about this big, ugly, awful art goal. Now, similarly, this one, I'm actually gonna preface this by telling you, I made this declaration in my video about my art goals last year, and I want to tell you why I've come to learn that it's probably why I didn't achieve it, okay? So have you ever said something to the degree of, I want to get X amount of followers, I want to get 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, a million followers, subscribers, likes, comments. You can swap this in and out. It's interchangeable, okay? But you want to hit a specific figure. Let's say that you also want to hit a specific dollar amount, okay? So if you're making a goal this year that is, I want to make X amount of dollars, X amount of subscribers, X amount of this or that, okay? Here's a big reason, especially why this entangles itself with social media issues and bad articles for it, is because of the fact that you don't have direct control over that. This is completely ambiguous, it's nebulous, and it's not something that you are in control of. And when I reconsidered why I said last year, I want to hit 50,000 subscribers on this platform, well, first off, I doubled the amount that I had. I'm very proud of myself for that. But upon reflecting on that, I realized here's where I'm going with it, and here's what I'm going to talk about a little bit more in my art goals video for this year. I'm instead going to be focusing on making the type of content that is worth that much, because that you can't control, my friend. So what I'm going to advise you on is, if this is your goal, make content worth whatever amount of subscribers. So like for me, I'm like, I want to hit 100,000 subscribers. I know I'll do it at some point in my lifetime, maybe sooner than later, maybe not. But here's my thought. You want to make content worth whatever number of followers, whatever number of likes, whatever number of income that you want to get in order to support your lifestyle or to increase it. And in this, you want to be hard focused on what are you doing. So if you're a content creator like me, you want to think about, what is the level of my production? What does a 1,000 subscriber video look like? What does a 2,000 subscriber video look like? What's a 10,000 subscriber video look like? What's a 50,000 subscriber video look like? So for me, I'm not looking at, okay, I just want to hit that number and pretty please universe, please grant this to me. Pretty please with sugar on top. No, I'm instead looking at, okay, what am I doing? What am I improving? What's the 1% difference I'm making in my content every single time? For you, if that's not your jam, that's cool. Hang with me, because you can take a look at this in your artwork too. And I've also done this with my commissions. I used to say, okay, what does a $50 commission look like? What's a $100 commission look like? What's a $500 commission look like? What's a $1,000 commission look like? What's a $1,500 to $2,000 commission look like? That's been my mindset and why I've been able to net that for that. And now I'm transferring that into my content creation. So if you're on that boat too, and you want to get the number of likes, the number of comments, the number of subs, followers, whatever you want, stop wishing for it. Stop making that your goal and start making content worth that much. Start looking at, what are you going to change, improve, and evolve this year for it? How's that sound? Because the value of people, like subscribers, income, whatever it is for you, is directly proportionate to the value that you're going to offer other people. How's that sound? Now, can I tell you one of the most tragic pieces of advice that you will ever hear on this or any other platform? And it has to do with you wanting to grow your audience. Is that you this year? Are you thinking about like, hey, I want to grow my audience. I want to just amass a certain number of people out there that are just gonna love me, they're gonna appreciate what I'm doing, they're gonna support me along my journey. And so you're gonna say this year, I wanna grow my audience. Okay, for what? There's the problem. You have no purpose and no intent for them. Listen, if you just want like 100,000 friends, just go ahead and just be a complete people pleaser and just act like you're fake and you love everybody. And that will not net you a good audience. But if you're thinking about doing this, my friend, let me help you restructure this, because I want to tell you something that very few people actually tell you, and it has to do with this. What value are you offering? You cannot expect people to want to love and support you just because you make artwork. Literally, that's not that special compared to the other millions of artists out there. But what you do want to think about is beyond your artwork, or what your artwork does for them, what value does that offer them? And why does that resonate with them, and how does that come back to you? What this does for you is it therefore allows you to grow an audience that's actually composed of a certain type of person who is going to appreciate what you are going to offer out there. And if you niche into that, I promise you, you're gonna get so much more out of it, and there's actually gonna be a purpose and intent behind what you're trying to do, and you're gonna affect the lives of more people, because that is what you wanna do, right? And I also just wanna say this, just growing an audience is worthless, okay? Because not all audiences are gonna give you what you want. Because honestly, not all audiences are useful. Like just for example here, there are plenty of massive art influencers that also talk about commissions, and they have hundreds or millions of followers on how to do this. However, though, I can 10 or 100x what they're currently able to produce themselves, and they're advising people up on there. So not all audiences are equal, and it doesn't mean that just because you have more people following you that you're going to directly get funds from that. And the best way I want to transform your perception of an audience is that an audience is a person or a group of people who reciprocate the help and value that you offer them. They are not lurkers that are there to help support your lifestyle. Does that make more sense? So think about now, how do you want to target your audience? What actions are you going to take? And what is your measurable outcome going to be for that? How's that sound? Bet you never heard that one before. Now let's hit a real lofty one right here, okay? So you're probably gunning this year to get that job, to get into that career, to bust into that industry. Is this you? Because tell me about what it's going to be down below. And I want to also unfortunately let you know that that is a very bad art goal. It's not that it's impossible. It's not that you can't do it, friend. Hear me well. What I'm just going to say is that in a goal in and of itself, it's a bad goal, okay? Because this is too focused on a single outcome, you getting hired by somebody, and not the steps towards it. And the issue that this typically leads to is that you're gonna feel heavy motivation at first. You're gonna be charged up, fired up. You're gonna be looking here, there, and the other place, trying to figure out what to do, applying here in all these places, grabbing anything that you have and just throwing it out there, or maybe you're gonna do a little stuff. The issue that's gonna hit you and plague you this year while you're trying to hit that goal is that this is completely doomed to overwhelming you for most artists. So let's approach this differently. You need to think about this. What do you have to do in order to get into that career, in order to get into that industry? What is your approach? What do you specifically have to do? Let's say that you want to go into the field of concept art. Okay, cool. What are you going to do over this year in order to accomplish that goal? What are you going to do in order to make your portfolio more attractive this year? How are you going to target the type of studio that you want to get into? What skills do you need to grow, foster, and develop in order to get you there? And if it's not going to be this year that you want to get into there, then what are you going to do over the next 2 years or 3 years in order to grow that? Because it might be a longer road for you too. So think about this. How do you break it down and how do you want to approach it? So let's say, for example, that you wanted to get hired by like Magic the Gathering. Let's say that you wanted to get hired by Blizzard, right? I would do this. I would take a look at what's that studio offering, take a look at your stuff, and take a look and compare the two and see, okay, how do I create my artwork that will create more like this? How do I emulate the process? What type of workflow do they expect? What type of process should I be employing so that when I submit to them, they're gonna love it and they're gonna see that they can hire somebody like me who can be an integral part of their process and their pipeline, okay? So you wanna think about very hard, specific things, delineate, create a plan for the exact steps that you want to take for it. You see how that works? So think about the exact number of portfolio pieces, the exact number of process pieces, the exact number of things that you have to do, learn, implement, and target for the style of whatever studio or whatever type of job, career, industry that you want to get into in the art business. Because listen, this is not a simple process, it's not a simple outcome, and it's not a simple set of requirements. But you need to be focused on not getting the job, but making yourself most attractive. And how are you going to do that? Now, real talk here, art is definitely something that can really plague you. It can eat away at you, and it's a very demanding skill set. It's a very demanding lifestyle, isn't it? And because of that, one of the things that we definitely need to do a little bit better is definitely to rest and to work on ourselves, okay? And so this year, have you concluded that maybe you want to work on your mental health a little bit more? And that's awesome. And let me just say that that is something that all of us should do. And I love the spirit of that. But I'm just gonna warn you that you probably are going about that in the wrong way because there's a lot of bad advice about this. And although artists all need a break, we all need a break as human beings. But what this tends to devolve into is not taking a break, but instead you just wanting distraction. And at the core of this, let's understand one thing, is that a break serves a purpose. A break is a rest. A break is time away from what you're doing. A break is removal from what you're currently working on. A break is space away from everything that's currently happening, okay? What it is not, though, it is not the utilization of a screen for a break, because that does not produce a break, my friend. It is not excess sleeping. Just real talk here, if you're an adult and over the age of 19, you do not need to be sleeping 9+ hours a day. That's avoidance. Or you have some type of health concern. It's also, speaking from personal experience, it's not binge eating, it's not partying, it's not anything that you switch your task away from. So I want you to think about what specific breaks, what type of breaks, and how do you structure that? Because you can't just go forever. And yes, you can still do all those fun humanistic things like play video games and watch TV, but structure it a little bit so that you can come back recharged and re-engaged into your artwork and not avoiding it. And I've got an entire video that's coming out real soon about taking bad breaks versus taking good breaks and how to evolve them to help you out with this too. But overall, we need to take breaks that support our art, not take us away from it. So if you want to work on your mental health, y'all, here's some examples of things that will actually do that. Do you need to make some time for therapy? Do you need to make some time to be in a support group? Do you want to create some type of window of time where you're actually going to go and be around people? Maybe you engage with them. Maybe you're going to make it a point to take more walks. Maybe you're going to make it a point to work on your physical health to assist with your mental health. What is that going to be? And again, what specific actions are you going to take in order to get there? And share it down below just so that we get some great healthy versions of this. And just so that you don't misunderstand me, we do not want to be distracting ourselves from this. So hey, are you a slowpoke artist? Are you somebody that says now this year, I want to get faster, I want to be a speed demon? Are you looking at how long it takes you to do something, you feel bad about it, or you feel disengaged at some point and you're just like, man, I wish I could just go so much faster here? Is this you? I want to let you know that you're probably a little too drunk off speed paints, and I instead want to let you know that speed isn't actually what you want, friend, because real talk, if you just had more speed, you'd be making more mistakes and more disappointment and a lot faster. And that's probably not what you want. At least I hope, right? Instead, here's your real issue there, is that if this is your goal, the real thing that you're trying to combat first and foremost is desire. Because really what you want is you want proficiency, because proficiency will grant you that. Because you're kind of putting the cart before the horse in that circumstance. And when you're watching pros, you're watching people that have 20+ years of experience, and they're putting 20+ years of their life and in their experience in their professional endeavor into every line and every brushstroke. But that's not you yet, is it? So instead, I want to advise you on what are you going to do to work up your proficiency? How are you going to handle that? Or if this is something that you did sincerely want to do and you wanted to try to draw certain things better, things you have to draw all the time maybe, here's a way that you could do that, my friend. Like if there are common elements in all of your artworks, here you go. You can go ahead and take a look at a reference, give yourself some type of a time frame, like give yourself an hour and draw it. Then go ahead and give yourself 30 minutes. Draw it again. Then go ahead and give yourself 30 minutes with no reference and draw it again. And then try and draw it again in half that time, okay? That is how you can actually increase your speed, but it will not increase your proficiency. And the way I wanna just warn you about this is that if you just wanna get faster, this is almost like if you wanted to do math faster, okay? Let's take you back to your school time, okay? Let's say you had an entire sheet of 100 math problems. Well, you can do it really fast, but doesn't mean it's gonna be really accurate. And why is that? Because you don't have a formula for it. So if you're really wanting to increase your speed, the number one thing I'm gonna advise you on is you wanna increase your process. So how are you going to invest into your process? How are you going to develop your process this year? What steps are you going to take? And what new processes do you want to try out? For whatever period of time do you want to try that out? And then that's going to actually net you what you want. But my friend, key point here, speed is not what actually makes you better, okay? Because speed is a byproduct. Because speed really is efficiency, and efficiency is the byproduct of efficiency. See that? Like me, for example, I've been recording myself on YouTube now for 4 years and my speed paint's on there too. And one of the things I've noticed is that some of the stuff I used to take 25, 30+ hours to do, I can now do that in around 10 to 15. And that's not because I sought out immediately and necessarily that I wanted to get faster, but it's just because I got better over time. So use that knowledge and actually get better. Now, as an artist, we always want to get better. We want to increase our knowledge. We want to go ahead and invest into ourselves so that we become the best versions of ourselves, right? And so are you thinking about making it a big goal to take a course or class? You're gonna go ahead and finish that course or class. You're gonna go ahead and get one of these Skillshares, you're gonna get one of these Udemy courses or whatever you're gonna take, wherever you're gonna take it, right? Is that your goal? Because That's an awesome goal, but I'm gonna tell you at the same time why it's an absolute terrible goal. And to support this point, I wanna let you in on a surprising statistic. Are you aware that according to a LinkedIn study, that only 5 to 15% of people actually complete an entire course that they buy? And when you think about the amount of people that are selling courses, putting out courses, making lots of money from courses, it's kind of surprising that so few, like a marginal amount of people, actually care enough to go through the entire course. And why is that? Well, as a professional art educator for 15 years, I can identify these big issues. First off, is that they're uncertain outcomes. People buy it and they're not sure what they're gonna get until they get it, and then that kind of sucks because there's nothing that you can do after you buy the course and you're dissatisfied with it or it doesn't interest you. Honestly, a lot of courses are just long, drawn out content, and it's not anything more helpful than some of the stuff that some people put out on YouTube anyways. It's not anything that's more self-directed. It doesn't require or take or give you any more resources than what you currently had or was available for free. So that's a big disappointment too. Also, a complete lack of engagement. Like, we learn best by learning with actual people. People that went through COVID and were in schooling kind of know what I'm talking about, right? It was a terrible landscape for learning. Nobody learned anything and it just sucked. And that's the same reason why it's so disengaging and it's disheartening for people, because they're going through processes, they're trying to learn things, they're applying themselves to difficult concepts and processes, but they have literally no support. And yes, I understand that a lot of these courses also involve like a private Discord community, but then you're just lumped in with people that generally are just as confused and bewildered as you are. So that's not very helpful. On that note, no support. And just to be honest with you too, on another note, not all great artists are great educators either. And those are two completely different skill sets. That's why there's so few artists that are great educators on the topic as well. I'm not dismissing the fact that you need to increase your professional knowledge. I'm not dismissing art schools. I'm not dismissing any type of art program. What I am saying though is this: you need to have specific goals and purposes in a way for you to actually finish this. And here's what I recommend. First off, if you're choosing, it needs to have direct relevance. Relevance to what you want to do, relevance to the career path you want to take, relevance to the skills that you want to actually learn. Next, you need to have immediate implementation, okay? So if you're gonna buy that course, you're immediately going to use the skills from that you've researched on to actually support what you want to do. And then you need a strong outline for completion. How long do you need in order to complete it? Not everything should be an entire year. Sometimes it'll only be a month or 3 months or 6 months, or maybe for super long courses, sure, it can take the entire year, but you need to break that down more. How many modules, how many courses are you going to do throughout this year? That's a strong way to do it, and that will actually lead you to complete the dang thing. How about that? Because I want you to complete this. I want you to invest into yourself. I want you, however, though, more importantly, to follow through. Sound fair? Now let's talk about a big issue that plagues almost all creators. And let me just ask you this. Are you a big time procrastinator? Are you somebody that puts off things and puts off things and puts off things? Or are you somebody that starts something, stops, you were motivated, now you're not? Or hey, I'm all into this, whoopsie, not anymore. So if this is somebody like you might be thinking to yourself, I'm gonna stop procrastinating this year. But that's also a bad article. I'll tell you why. Because you don't know what causes it. You don't know what the real root issue is. And that's why it's not going to be a good focus for you this year. But to help you out with that though, and to give you a better structure for how to actually combat that, I made this entire video right here. It's going to teach you how to actually blast through your procrastination. And if this helped you, please share it with somebody that you know. Thanks so much and see you next time.